Good morning. Welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, who were just raided by my children, who took a run out there for, I believe they referred to it as a special mission, and came back with all kinds of really healthy stuff.
Well, yeah, I saw Dara went in with the mac and cheese bites. I like doing the fried appetizer sampler where you can pick like 3 different, so you can get the mac and cheese bites, but you can also get like fried pickles and mozzarella sticks. So
that's what my son usually gets. Yeah, I didn't even know that existed until he pushed the button. It's good stuff. And yes, we actually do eat places other than Get Go. It might sometimes come across that way. Let's talk a little bit about hockey, because there actually is hockey going on somewhat. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's just it feels still like it's out of sight, out of mind. Maybe it's just that way to us because we're used to being there, and obviously we can't be there right now. What is going on in Cranberry that might actually matter right now, Taylor?
What might actually matter? I mean, not much other than seeing that Gensel is on the ice. He's looking good, taking shots. As far as what actually matters, I mean, not a whole lot. Guys are getting their legs out under them. I mean, there's not a whole lot because, I mean, they can't really be that close to each other. They're not, like, doing scrimmages. There's only 6 guys on the ice at a time. They're working with Ty Hennis, the skills coach, which, I mean, they do during the season a little bit. They're doing a lot of skating drills.
Yeah, right.
Not a whole lot.
But, okay, but at the same time, isn't it fair, at least a little bit, to say, okay, here are the groups. Mike Sullivan was the one that came up with the groups. This wasn't just like who the first 5 guys are in the building. These are assigned, broken down groups of either 5 or 6, depending on how many people, or if a coach is on the ice, a skills coach. Isn't it logical to say if Sherry, Crosby, and Gensel are out there together, then Mike Sullivan is leaning in that direction as a line?
No, because, I mean, like, they have been together since Sherry joined the Skates, but then also anyone else who could maybe be on that line with Crosby and Gensel is not in town yet. like Zucker, I'm pretty sure he's still in Minnesota based off of social. He's not even at the Skates, so it's not like, oh, Sherry's with Gensel and Crosby, like, oh, that must be the line. Because there's really not any other options who are in town.
Well, here, I'll play, and just because I'm trying to picture if somebody's watching this or listening to this, they're thinking, why wouldn't Zucker be there? I mean, Minnesota doesn't require a passport to get here. Why wouldn't he make it?
I mean, he has his family. Guys with families, that's a whole different thing. I know he has his family situation is kind of unique, where he has a stepdaughter who shares time with her biological father, and because I know that was one of the reasons why he wasn't sure when he would be able to move here, get a house here when he came here.
Move permanently, yeah.
So I could see that being a delay there just because of his kids in that situation.
Okay, so it's personal stuff. Yeah. I guess a cynic would say, I mean, he's just had 3 months there, and this is kind of important, and this is a job. I don't mean to be stirring something up. I'm just trying to picture somebody's watching this. That might be what they're thinking. Why wouldn't he be here?
So I don't know. If
other guys.
Yeah, I don't know. So like Zucker, I don't know if he is skating in Minnesota, but he can. Mm-hmm. If the rink there is open and there's space, like time slots for guys from other NHL teams, they're allowed to skate in other NHL cities. Like
you were saying, wasn't Samuel Poulin was skating?
He's not in Pittsburgh yet.
Tell everybody who he's skating with.
Yeah, Montreal. So he's like a little undercover.
Great.
So guys can do that. I know Marleau. Marleau's not back yet, but he is skating in San Jose. Okay. So guys do have options.
So we shouldn't necessarily look at these skates and say, aha, here it is, that's done. Now Chris Letang returned to skating, at least, again, to our eyes. We're not there to report. We only know whatever they show us on their video. And if they wanted to, they could hide anything from us. Mm-hmm. Not to be a cynic, but that's also why we like to be there and see things for ourselves. So if we saw Letang paired, not that there's any mystery about who he'd be paired with. It's obviously going to be Brian Dumoulin. We shouldn't read too much into it, is what I'm saying.
No, I mean, the first couple skates, I'm pretty sure Dumoulin was with Jack Johnson. Like, that's obviously not,
That's not going to happen, no.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, so I don't know if this applies to everybody coming back into the country, but they are, I don't know if it's required or if it's just something the Penguins are having guys do, but they are quarantining. Because, like, Larmy came back from Finland, he got here Saturday, and he told me he's going to quarantine for 2 weeks before he goes back on the ice. So I don't know if he because I don't think that's an NHL rule. It's not something, it's not like a U.S. rule. It's not like Canada.
No, that's government. Yeah, that's where I think it'll be significant when you start seeing Patrick Hornqvist, who I believe did go back to Sweden. When you start seeing players like that get back on the rink, you'll know that this is in full swing. You mentioned Patrick Marleau briefly. I have a feeling that whenever we have these discussions, and you and I have had a bunch already, because that's all we can do now is go over lines and who might be on what lines. Marleau is like the one guy that gets left out of all these debates where, is it going to be Jason Zucker or Sherry on the first line? Who's going to be with Malkin? Who's going to be on the third line next to, Jared McCann and Patrick Hornqvist? Is Patrick Marleau, or should he be Malkin's left winger on the second line?
That's where I have him in my ideal lines. I had him with Malkin and Russ. I think you don't get you don't trade for Patrick Marleau to scratch him, and I don't think they'd put him on the third or fourth lines.
Fourth line's off limits. We agree on that.
Yeah,
fourth line. You don't touch the fourth line.
You're not touching them. It's probably either the second or the third line. And he was playing with Malkin and Russ, before everything shut down. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of him, and I think maybe the reason people are leaving him off their, ideal lines is because people forget he's a Penguin.
I think that's it. I honestly, I don't think it's more. Or, in addition to that, because he, as great a career as he's had, I mean, he's heading into the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that. He's the greatest Shark of all time. The fact that everything that he accomplished almost everything was way out on the West Coast, 10-30 games, all that other stuff, that there isn't going to be enough of an appreciation for who and what Patrick Marleau is and what he can bring, including in playoffs and big games. But then you add into that, he's 40 years old and whatever else here, but the thing that hurts someone in advanced age more than anything else is the inability or the length of time that it takes to rest and recuperate and rebuild your energy and restock your muscles and everything else. Well, I can promise you that someone of Marleau's impeccable professionalism hasn't just sat around binging on Netflix these last 3 months. He's found a way to put himself into absolute maximum shape, and he is driven. This is a driven individual to win a Stanley Cup because he is running out of chances. If you think that that's someone who is worthy of either being on the third line or a healthy scratch or whatever, you don't understand what Patrick Marleau is.
Yeah, he has been skating in San Jose. I think just started this week. His wife tweeted a video of him on the ice. But I mean, he has been rollerblading. We've seen that. So he is working out. No, but it's interesting. He was just on Spit and Chicklets podcast, and I listened to it, and he talked about, how as he gets older, what he has to do to, be able to play. And I think he said, earlier in his career, he would take a lot of time off in the summers and, take that rest. But he said what younger guys are doing now, like Austin Matthews, is like they don't take that time off. So he's starting to do that and not take a whole lot of time off in the summer off of the ice. So, I mean, he's in good shape.
And this isn't even summer, really. I mean, this is such a strange situation that you can't look at this as, because they never knew at any point when they might come back. Mm-hmm. They couldn't just go out they actually couldn't even leave the houses for a long period of time, which is why a lot of those Marleau rollerblading videos were like right
in
through
his house.
living room. Yeah. I have a lot of confidence in this guy based on his career, based on his extraordinary level of motivation that he would have here. We saw that, Taylor, with Ron Hainsey. Not that Ron Hainsey is heading into the Hall of Fame or anything here, but when you have these older guys that know they've got one last gasp, theoretically, they haven't won the Stanley Cup, they haven't won anything. They want that. They don't want to retire. They don't want to end their careers not ever having done this while having watched countless other people around them do it. I wouldn't underestimate that. And from there, what you're doing is you're dropping Jason Zucker now onto a third line. Honestly, I kind of like that. I mean, I'd rather have Zucker on the first line, but presuming that they go with Sherry up top, you would have, with Zucker, McCann, and Hornqvist, you would have a little bit of everything. You'd have guys who would take care of their own end. You'd have some speed with Zucker and McCann. Hornqvist obviously not as fast, but he's capable of a dynamic forecheck in his own way because of what a monster he can be once he's around the puck. I kind of like what that line could bring.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think for Sherry, it's either top six or not in the line.
Or out. Yeah, and that's the difference between him and Zucker.
Line. Yeah.
Yeah, Zucker did a third line. He did a fourth line in Minnesota. He can take care of both ends.
Yeah, because I mean, in my ideal lines, what I had Marleau and Zucker in the top six, and then I didn't have Sherry in at all. I had Rodriguez in on the third line, but I mean, if you scratch Rodriguez, put Sherry on the top line and Zucker in the third, that's not a bad option, and I'm sure they'll try. We're probably looking at 3 weeks of camp. They have a lot of time to try a lot of things.
They really
They'll probably
do.
be doing a lot of scrimmages, so we'll probably see a lot of different combinations.
Now, of all the crazy things to have emerged from this pandemic, imagine that the Buffalo Sabres would have made the most news in June of 2020, right? But they didn't just fire old friend Jason Botterill, who was supposed to be the GM here at some point. If you'll recall, he was Jim Rutherford's right-hand man. Taylor, they fired everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, you better not go down the line. It'd be more worth your time listing who is still around.
It was a total of...
It was like 20-something. It was like
people,
22, yeah.
Half of whom, I think, worked for the Penguins at some point. Randy Sexton used to be the Penguins scouting director. There's a bunch of very familiar names on there. The Sabres took their staff down from, I think, by getting rid of 22 people, they were left with 7.
Yeah, I mean, just to go over it, the entire AHL coaching staff, so head coach Chris Taylor and his 2 assistants, 2 player development coaches, they only have 1 left, a bunch of amateur scouts. I saw
also former Penguins. I can't think of their name right now, but guys who were involved in the Penguins. Yeah.
Yeah, and so another assistant. There's a lot. I mean, there's like a strength coach or some guy like that, but it was like all different kinds of roles. It's not just like the high up.
And I guess a couple of things come to mind here. One is that the Sabres are an absolute catastrophic mess. I don't think anybody would dispute that. Ultimately, when it comes to something of this scope, you look at ownership, and that's the Pegula family. Both Ralph and Kim, and she's actually become the more instrumental, the more influential member of that family when it comes to making business decisions related to the Sabres. It's funny that on one hand, the Pegulas were seen as the saviors. Not only people are aware of what they did at Penn State. They put in $80+ million to get that gorgeous arena built there for the Nittany Lions. But then when they went in and got the Sabres, it was like, that's it. Now the Sabres have good ownership. Now they're reliable. But when you're hot-headed and you react like this and you're just constantly changing, and then in this case, maybe even doing it for saving a few bucks. Taylor, right before they draft, they ditched all their scouts.
That's the thing. So Kim Pegula did an interview with AP back in May, and she said Botterill wasn't going anywhere. And,
right.
spoke highly of him. And then, when it came out 3 weeks later that they fire him, she said on the Zoom press conference after that one of the, deciding factors was that, like, now we know the NHL draft is going to be after the season in the fall. And so now, you take him out and you put a new guy in there. She said he had more, he would have more time to get acclimated, which, like, so if that's the logic, if the draft would have been, in June,
okay,
if they weren't happy with Botterill, they were just going to let him.
Okay, this is all really stupid. And the fact of the matter is that other than the people here who knew about Botterill, no one's really going to care all that much about the Buffalo Sabres. But here's what is interesting, I think, from the common fan standpoint, and that is that don't tell me that Jack Eichel wants to stay there and play. I don't care what he says publicly, and heaven knows he's been outspoken to the other extreme publicly, at least more than most young stars in this league. Jack Eichel is coming off what I feel was a bit of a breakthrough season for him. And I don't think anybody ever realistically expected him to be Connor McDavid just because he was drafted right behind McDavid. But they expected him to perform at the level that we just saw this past season. Taylor, you and I watched him put together a hat trick in Pittsburgh. He's an impressive hockey player who has star capability in this league, not in Buffalo. And I just wonder how long it's going to be before someone like him or Rasmus Dahlin or any of these, they do have younger, good players there. Casey Middlestad's another one who came up as a rookie last year, good, smallish, but really promising forward. What's going to happen in Buffalo? Because if I'm these kids and or their parents or their agents, I am bolting for the exits. I am getting out of there because I will never see a playoff game there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to wait and see what the new management does. I think his name is Kevin Adams. I think that's the GM's name.
He's just an interim guy. They just promoted somebody. He's nobody.
He is the head guy. This is not an interim title.
No. But I mean, it feels like an interim because he just happened to be the last guy they looked at in the building on the way out.
Oh yeah, like Terry Pugalis, so they didn't. There was no formal search process.
Right. That's what I mean. It was like, hey, you over there. You want to be GM? Cool. Come on. I mean, that's what they did.
But I mean, I don't know, you gotta see what happens in the next season or two because I mean, talk about McDavid. McDavid also has Draisaitl to play with. Eichel doesn't really have anyone like that. If they could get Eichel a supporting cast, I mean, I don't think.
Fairness, really Rasmus Dahlin is a different type of supporting cast. Rasmus Dahlin is going to be I think a tremendous defenseman in the National Hockey League. He has every skill set. I mean, they've added some players. They haven't really known what to do with them. Mm-hmm. They have also Jason Botterill made a couple of terrific trades there. I mean, the resurrection of Jeff Skinner's career in Buffalo we saw. The Sabres looked at times like they were getting things together, but you got to give the guy a bit of a chance, meaning Botterill.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And that's why I'm telling you, the same noises that you started hearing from McDavid, remember last summer when he started squawking a little bit about, I don't know how much more of this I can take? Mm-hmm. The Sabres have now been 9 years out of the playoffs in a league where 16 teams make it. It is the longest sustained stretch of missing the playoffs that the NHL has seen in the modern era.
It's one away from the all-time record.
It's crazy, and you're looking at a situation where Eichel's been there 5 years. We think of him as just being some new guy. He's been part of 5 of those. He has never played a playoff game. Now, old-time hockey fans in Pittsburgh can remember that there's a certain guy here who went first 5 years of his career and turned out okay without making the playoffs. That was Marleau, of course. But that's not the norm. If you consider yourself to be an elite player, you got to get in the playoffs. I'm telling you, I think some of these guys are going to want out sooner rather than later.
I mean, yeah, Eichel's $10 million cap hit makes that a little bit tough. So I don't know.
Who wouldn't take it? Who wouldn't make room for him? Not Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh.
Not Pittsburgh, but I mean, especially with the cap situation being, what it is.
Good point. Good point.
The Pagolas are being cheap. I don't think they're going to want to retain any salary.
Yeah,
so it would be tough to move him.
Nonetheless, massive, massive mess in Buffalo.
Crazy.